Hi, I'm Charlie from Chadwick Optical. Today we are going to talk about how to calculate what kind of magnifier you need. And to start, we'll talk about X. So a lot of times you'll see magnifiers and they say we're 2X, 3X, 4X, anything like that. And what that would imply is that the size of the image that the magnifier is creating is 4 times the size, or 3 times the size, or 2 times the size of whatever it is that you're looking at. With a handheld magnifier, that could not be wronger. It's just dead wrong. Now, when we're talking about X with a binocular or a telescope, it is a very accurate means of measuring magnification. What do we use instead? Instead of magnification like 3x, 4x, 5x, we use diopters. So what a diopter is actually a focal length of a lens. So if you remember from grade school, you may have taken a magnifying glass and held it at a certain point and set a piece of paper on fire or something like that. That's the focal length of a magnifier. And by measuring the focal length needed, that's a much more effective means of calculating magnification rather than the X. And there is no real equivalent between diopters, which is the focal length measurement, and X, which is the magnification measurement. There are multiple different ways that X can be calculated. Nobody talks about which way they used, so you just can't trust X when it comes to magnifiers. Now, how do you calculate diopters? So there's a means of measuring text size called the M size. And the M size is very frequently used in low vision instead of Snellen. So Snellen is your normal one that you know as 2020, 2040, 2060. The thing that's built into Snellen that we don't necessarily think about is that there's this assumption that you're looking 20 feet away. So when we say it's 2020, that 20 is that you're 20 feet away. With a handheld magnifier, you're never using a handheld magnifier to look at something 20 feet away. So we use M size instead of Snellen, and on our site you can download a chart with the M size, printable chart that is, when you print it, you can check the scale and make sure it's correct by using a credit card to validate that you printed it the right size. So once you have the M size chart, now what we want to do is read it. And the question is, what's the smallest font size you can read? Once we figure out the smallest font size you can read, that's one thing that we need. Smallest size. The second thing that we need is how far are you from the reading material. So we need those two numbers. And then the third thing that we need is your target size. So just to elaborate a little bit on each of those. So the card has a bunch of different sizes. You would look at that and you would see what the smallest size you're able to read. From that, when you find that, where this is the smallest size I'm able to read, the next question is how far away are you from that chart when you're able to read that distance, read that size. And we're going to measure that in meters, which is kind of annoying if you're in the US because converting it to meters is a little bit tedious, but it'll help us later. Diopters are measured in meters as a function of meters as well. So once we figure out these three things, the smallest size you can read, how far you are in meter, and then your target size. So the target size is what you want to read. So do you want to read a Bible? Do you want to read a large print newspaper? Do you want to read playing cards? And then we can figure out what size is the target. So newsprint is a 1M typically. Using those three things, now we can do a little bit of math. And I will do a little bit of math right here. So we take the size you're able to read, divide that by the distance. So in this case, let's say we were at 40 centimeters. distance. Now we want to take that number and divide it by your target size. So 4 divided by 0.4 is pretty easy. That is 10. And divide it by your target size. So let's say your target size is 2m. So 10 divided by 2 is you would need a 5 diopter magnifier. Now what if your target is 1m? Now 10 divided by 1, your target's you're going to be looking for a 10 diopter magnifier. Now this is a guide. This is not a, hey, this is not like a refraction where they're focusing light very specifically on your eye and making sure that you have a clear image on your retina and it's super accurate. This is kind of an approximation, because what will happen is if you undercorrect yourself, you won't be able to read what you need to read, and that'll be way harder. And if you overcorrect yourself, you'll shrink the field of view to a point where you'll have to be looking at just a couple characters at a time. So what you want to do is find this number, and then if you can, experiment around either side of it and really see what works best with you. So in the case of a 10 diopter, you might try an 8, a 10, and a 12 and see what task you're trying to accomplish and what works best.